For nearly half a century, the world lived beneath a shadow dot. It stretched across Europe, across oceans, across generations. It divided cities, divided families, divided the future itself. Concrete and barbed wire ran through the heart of Berlin. On one side, the West, on the other, the Soviet East. And standing over it all, silent and watchful, the towers of the Berlin Wall dot in the United States. School children practiced duck and cover drills. In the Soviet Union, families listened carefully to state radio. Two nuclear superpowers faced one another, armed not only with missiles, but with ideology. And then, almost overnight, it seemed to end. In 1987, President Ronald Reagan stood in Berlin and delivered a challenge heard around the world. A few years later, the Soviet Union dissolved. The flags changed. The maps were redrawn, and many Americans believed the long struggle was finally over. The Cold War had been won. Or so it appeared. But history has a way of moving quietly. Not every conflict ends with surrender papers. Not every war announces its return. Today, the skyline of Washington glows softly at night. The dome of the Capitol stands steady, unchanged. Across the ocean, the towers of the Kremlin still rise above Moscow, ancient and unyielding. There are no tanks rolling across Europe, no sirens in the streets, no formal declarations of war. And yet, tensions remain, expulsions of diplomats, sanctions passed in distant chambers, cyber intrusions traced through invisible networks, elections questioned, alliances tested. Headlines flicker across television screens, then disappear, replaced by the next crisis of the day. What if the Cold War did not truly end? What if it simply changed form? The battlefields of the 21st century are harder to see. They exist in computer code, in energy pipelines, in financial markets, in whispered conversations between intelligence officers. The weapons are quieter now, the strategies more patient, the victories less obvious. This is not a war of tanks and trenches. It is a war of endurance, of influence, of perception. And perhaps most unsettling of all, it is a war without a clear beginning or a clear end. For decades, Americans believed that democracy and free markets had prevailed. Russia, after years of instability, began rebuilding its power and asserting its place once more on the world stage. Each nation tells its own story about strength, resilience, and destiny. But beneath the speeches and ceremonies, beneath the handshakes and summits, something older continues, a rivalry, a test of wills. So we ask a simple question, one that may not have a simple answer. In this quiet, persistent struggle between two nuclear powers, in this hidden war fought far from public view, who is really winning? And perhaps more importantly, at what cost? Long before cyber attacks and economic sanctions made headlines, the hidden war between the United States and Russia was fought in silence, not on battlefields, but in shadows. In Langley, Virginia, behind layers of security and quiet professionalism, stands the headquarters of the Central Intelligence Agency. Its seal is carved in stone. Its mission, by necessity, often remains unspoken. Across the ocean, in Moscow, the imposing Lubyanka building houses the Federal Security Service, the modern successor to the Soviet KGB. Thick walls, watchful eyes, a legacy that stretches back through Revolution, World War, and the height of the Cold War during the 20th century. These institutions stood at the center of a global chess match. American and Soviet intelligence officers recruited sources in foreign capitals. They planted listening devices. They passed microfilm in envelopes. They met in quiet parks, pretending not to know one another. The stories have become almost cinematic, dead drops and hollowed-out bricks, coded messages hidden in radio broadcasts, briefcases exchanged on bridges at dawn. One such place, the Glienicke Bridge in Germany, became known as the Bridge of Spies. There, East and West swapped captured agents in carefully choreographed exchanges, each side studying the other, each side calculating risk. For decades, this was the rhythm of confrontation. Dangerous, but controlled. Then came 1991. The Soviet Union dissolved. The red flag was lowered from the Kremlin. For many Americans, it felt like the closing chapter of a long and exhausting rivalry. Intelligence budgets were reduced. Attention shifted. A new world order seemed to be emerging. But intelligence services do not disappear simply because politics changed. In Russia, former KGB officers moved into positions of power. The security apparatus reorganized, renamed, and rebuilt. In the United States, the CIA adapted to new threats: terrorism, regional instability, rogue states. Yet beneath these shifting priorities, the old rivalry did not vanish. It endured. Throughout the 1990s and early 2000s, cases began to surface that suggested something familiar was unfolding again. Russian operatives were discovered operating quietly in Western nations. Some posed as diplomats. Others lived under carefully constructed false identities, blending into suburban neighborhoods, raising families, building ordinary lives. When arrests were announced, they often came as a shock. Neighbors would say the same thing. They seemed so normal. That is the nature of modern espionage. It does not draw attention. It thrives on patience. On the American side, intelligence operations also continued. The United States monitored Russian military developments, political shifts, and strategic intentions. Satellites tracked movements. Signals were intercepted. Human sources were cultivated at great risk. But today's intelligence war is not simply about gathering secrets. It is about influence. During the Cold War, the Soviet Union refined a strategy known as active measures. It involved more than spying. It involved shaping perception, spreading carefully crafted narratives, encouraging distrust, amplifying divisions within rival societies. The objective was not necessarily to convince everyone of a new truth. It was to weaken confidence in the old one. In the modern era, that strategy has evolved. Intelligence agencies no longer operate only in back alleys and embassy corridors. They study social tensions. They observe media cycles. They analyze how information spreads. The battlefield has expanded. When diplomats are expelled from Washington or Moscow, it often signals more than a policy dispute. Behind those expulsions are accusations, espionage, recruitment attempts, covert operations uncovered. Yet, for every incident that reaches the public, countless others remain classified. Intelligence successes are rarely announced. Failures are rarely explained, and so the public sees only fragments. Consider how delicate this balance truly is. Both nations possess nuclear arsenals capable of devastating the planet. Open conflict would be catastrophic. Intelligence services, in a strange way, act as both aggressors and guardians. They probe weaknesses. They test resolve. But they also help leaders understand the intentions of the other. Side dot in that understanding lies restraint dot if one side miscalculates, if information is misread or intentions misunderstood, the consequences could extend far beyond a diplomatic scandal dot, and so the intelligence game continues dot new. Technologies have changed the tools, but not the purpose. Artificial intelligence can now sift through massive volumes of data. Surveillance satellites offer astonishing clarity. Cyber capabilities blur the line between espionage and attack. Was a breach merely intelligence gathering? Or was it preparation for something more? Attribution is often murky. Governments speak cautiously. Statements are worded carefully. Sanctions may follow, but rarely a full explanation. For citizens watching from afar, it can feel distant, abstract, but intelligence rivalry shapes decisions that affect energy prices, military deployments, diplomatic alliances, and public trust. It shapes how leaders perceive risk. It shapes how quickly they escalate or de-escalate crises. And perhaps most important of all, it shapes what they fear. Fear is a powerful motivator in international affairs. During the Cold War, fear of surprise attack drove both sides to maintain constant vigilance. Today, fear of unseen interference in infrastructure, in elections, in financial systems creates a quieter but persistent tension. The spies of yesterday carried briefcases. The operatives of today may carry encrypted laptops, but the objective remains remarkably similar. Understand the adversary, and when possible, gain an advantage without triggering open war. It is a delicate dance. One side advances, the other responds, each probing just far enough to test limits, but not far enough to cross a red line, or so they hope, because the greatest intelligence victories are the ones the public never hears about, the crises that never erupt, the conflicts quietly diffused, and the greatest dangers may be those invisible to us, unfolding in classified rooms, discussed in low voices, recorded in documents we may not read for decades. The Cold War, we were told, ended more than 30 years ago, but in the corridors of Langley and in the offices of Moscow's security services, the contest never truly stopped. It adapted, it modernized, it went deeper underground. And as technology accelerates, as information travels faster than ever before, the stakes grow higher still, because the next phase of this hidden war would not depend solely on human agents meeting in the shadows. It would move into networks, into circuits, into systems that power modern life, and once conflict enters the wires, it becomes far more difficult to contain. In the 20th century, war was measured in divisions of soldiers, fleets of ships, and squadrons of aircraft. In the 21st century, it can be measured in lines of code. There are no sirens when a cyber attic begins, no smoke rising over a skyline. Often there is not even a sound. Somewhere in the world a keyboard is touched, a command is entered, and within seconds a signal travels across oceans, beneath cables laid quietly on the ocean floor. The target may be thousands of miles away. Power grids, hospitals, banks, government networks. The modern battlefield does not require troops to cross a border. It requires access. For decades, both the United States and Russia have developed sophisticated cyber capabilities. What began as intelligence gathering, quietly probing networks to collect information, gradually evolved into something more assertive. In Washington, the National Security Agency monitors global communications, analyzing patterns and signals at a scale unimaginable during the Cold War. Its mandate includes both defense and offense in the digital realm. In Moscow, specialized cyber units operate within the broader Russian security apparatus. Their methods are often indirect, rooted through layers of anonymity, leaving investigators with questions rather than clear fingerprints. One of the defining features of cyber conflict is plausible deniability. When a missile is launched, its origin is usually clear. Radar detects it. Satellites track it. Responsibility is difficult to dispute. But when a network is breached, when data is stolen or systems disrupted, attribution becomes a careful, often political process. Analysts trace digital breadcrumbs across servers in multiple countries. They study coding styles. They look for repeated techniques. Even then, certainty can remain just out of reach. Over the past 2 decades, a series of high-profile cyber incidents have underscored how vulnerable modern societies can be. Intrusions into government agencies, ransomware attacks on pipelines and hospitals, attempts to access voter databases, disinformation campaigns amplified through social media platforms. Each incident raises difficult questions. Was this espionage, something nations have done for centuries? Or was it an act of aggression? Where is the line between gathering intelligence and preparing the battlefield? Consider the electric grid. In the United States, millions of homes rely on a complex network of generating stations, transmission lines, and digital control systems. Those systems were designed for efficiency and reliability, not necessarily for war. If malicious actors were to disrupt them, the consequences would extend far beyond inconvenience. Hospitals depend on electricity. Financial systems depend on connectivity. Even water treatment facilities rely on computerized controls. In Russia, similar vulnerabilities exist. No modern nation is immune, and that mutual vulnerability creates a kind of uneasy balance. Each side understands that escalation in cyberspace could invite retaliation. Unlike conventional warfare, the damage may not be limited to military targets. Civilians could feel the effects almost immediately. This is why cyber conflict often unfolds below the threshold of open war. Small intrusions, limited disruptions, strategic messaging. But even limited actions can have profound psychological impact. When Americans hear that foreign actors may have attempted to interfere in elections, it strikes at the heart of democratic identity. Confidence in institutions becomes fragile. Trust becomes a strategic target. From Moscow's perspective, Russian officials have repeatedly denied certain allegations, arguing that accusations are politically motivated or exaggerated. They point to American cyber capabilities and question whether the United States itself engages in similar practices abroad. And that may be the most unsettling aspect of cyber warfare. Both sides possess the tools. Both sides study one another's systems. Both sides insist they are defending themselves. Meanwhile, private citizens navigate an increasingly digital world. They bank online. They communicate through social media. They store personal data in the cloud. Most of the time, these systems function smoothly. But beneath the surface, a quiet contest is underway. Security experts describe it as a constant probing. Networks are tested daily. Firewalls are challenged. Phishing emails are sent by the thousands, sometimes by criminal groups, sometimes by state-linked actors. The line between crime and statecraft grows blurry. Ransomware gangs may operate independently, yet tolerate or benefit from safe havens. Governments may look the other way when actions align with broader strategic interests. For older Americans who remember air raid drills and televised addresses about nuclear brinkmanship, this new form of conflict can feel abstract. There are no visible enemies, no clear front lines, yet the potential impact is real. Imagine waking up to find your bank account inaccessible, your local hospital diverted to emergency procedures, gas stations unable to process payments, not because of a storm, not because of a mechanical failure, but because of code inserted months earlier, waiting quietly for activation. Cyber warfare is patient. It rewards preparation, and it thrives on ambiguity. There is also an escalation risk that troubles strategists on both sides. A cyber intrusion intended as a warning could be misinterpreted as preparation for a larger attack. A defensive countermeasure could be perceived as retaliation. In a domain where actions are difficult to attribute with certainty, misunderstandings can grow quickly. Military planners now include cyber capabilities alongside traditional forces. Exercises simulate attacks not only on battlefields, but on digital infrastructure. The question is no longer whether cyber operations are part of modern conflict. It is how far they will go. Some analysts argue that cyber conflict is the safest form of rivalry, a way to compete without bloodshed. Others warn that targeting civilian systems crosses a dangerous moral line. What remains clear is this: the hidden war has expanded into the wires that connect our world. The United States and Russia continue to test each other's defenses, quietly, persistently. Diplomatic protests follow major incidents. Sanctions may be imposed. Cybersecurity budgets increase. Yet the underlying competition remains, invisible, relentless, and evolving. If a war can be fought without a single soldier crossing a border, if power grids and elections can become targets, if suspicion can spread faster than any virus, then what exactly prevents this digital conflict from escalating beyond anyone's control? That question lingers in server rooms and situation centers on both sides of the ocean, because once conflict moves into the systems that sustain daily life, it no longer feels distant. It feels personal, and the next domain of this hidden struggle would remind the world that power is not only measured in data, but in resources that keep homes warm, industries running, and economies stable. In past centuries, wars were fought for territory. In the modern world, they are often fought for leverage. Oil, natural gas, access to markets, control of supply chains. The hidden war between the United States and Russia does not unfold only in intelligence briefings or cyber operations. It moves through pipelines, shipping lanes, and financial systems that touch everyday life. Russia sits atop vast reserves of energy. For decades, oil and natural gas have been central to its economy and its global influence. European nations, especially during the Cold War and after, built infrastructure that linked their industries and households to Russian gas fields thousands of miles away. Pipelines stretched across borders, beneath fields and forests, delivering warmth in winter and power to factories year-round. Energy created interdependence. From Moscow's perspective, it was a source of revenue and geopolitical weight. From Europe's perspective, it was affordable and reliable, at least most of the time. The United States watched this relationship closely. Energy dependency can become political dependency. If a nation relies heavily on a single supplier, its foreign policy options may narrow. When tensions rise, energy becomes more than a commodity. It becomes a message. Sanctions are another instrument in this quiet struggle. Unlike bombs or blockades, sanctions are legal tools, passed in legislative chambers and coordinated among allies. They restrict access to financial markets. They freeze assets. They limit the transfer of technology. The goal is pressure without war. Over the past decade, waves of sanctions have targeted Russian banks, energy firms, defense companies, and individuals considered close to the Kremlin. In response, Russia has sought to insulate its economy, building currency reserves, strengthening ties with non-Western markets, and reducing reliance on the U.S. dollar where possible. Economic warfare rarely delivers immediate results. It is a test of endurance. When sanctions are imposed, ordinary citizens often feel the impact first. Currency values shift, prices rise, and imported goods become more expensive or scarce. Investment slows, confidence wavers, but sanctions can also have unintended consequences. They may encourage domestic industries to develop substitutes. They may deepen national resolve rather than weaken it. History offers examples of both outcomes. In the United States, economic tools are often framed as a way to avoid military confrontation. They allow leaders to respond firmly without risking soldiers' lives. Yet these measures can ripple outward, affecting global markets. When oil prices spike, Americans notice at the pump. When natural gas prices surge in Europe, heating bills climb. Inflation becomes part of dinner table conversations. Suddenly, distant geopolitical tensions feel closer to home. Energy markets are global and interconnected. A disruption in one region can influence prices across continents. Decisions made in Moscow or Washington can influence farmers in the Midwest, factory owners in Germany, or pensioners on fixed incomes. And then there are supply chains. Modern economies depend on complex networks of shipping, manufacturing, and finance. Sanctions can complicate these networks, forcing companies to rethink partnerships and reroute trade. Cargo ships may change destinations. Contracts may be suspended. Insurance premiums may rise. Economic pressure is subtle, but persistent. It seeks to reshape behavior over time. But in a contest between major powers, each side adapts. Russia has expanded energy exports toward Asia. It has strengthened economic ties with countries less inclined to follow Western sanctions. The United States, meanwhile, has increased its own energy production over the past decade, becoming a major exporter of liquefied natural gas. This shift has altered the global energy landscape. For decades, American foreign policy assumed a certain level of energy vulnerability. Today, the United States has greater flexibility. That flexibility can translate into diplomatic leverage. Yet, no nation is fully insulated from global markets. Financial systems, in particular, are deeply interconnected. The U.S. dollar remains the dominant global currency. Many international transactions are cleared through American financial institutions. This gives Washington significant influence, but it also creates incentives for other nations to explore alternatives, new payment systems, new financial partnerships, new currencies. The economic battlefield is not static. It evolves as technology evolves. Digital currencies, alternative trade networks, and shifting alliances all play a role in reshaping the balance of power. For viewers who lived through the oil shocks of the 1970s, energy crises are not theoretical. They remember long lines at gas stations. They remember inflation eroding savings. They understand that economics can shape daily life as surely as any military action. Today's energy tensions may look different, but the underlying principle is familiar. Control over resources can influence political decisions, and yet, economic warfare carries risks for both sides. If sanctions are too broad, they can disrupt global markets and harm allies. If energy supplies are cut too abruptly, they can accelerate diversification away from the supplier. Pressure can provoke counter-pressure. In this environment, diplomacy often operates quietly alongside economic measures. Back-channel conversations, negotiations over exemptions, careful calibrations designed to send a signal without closing the door entirely. Because economic conflict, like cyber conflict, exists below the threshold of open war. It is a balancing act. Apply too little pressure, and the message may be ignored. Apply too much, and unintended consequences may spiral outward. The question, once again, becomes one of endurance. Which nation can absorb more economic strain? Which society can tolerate higher prices, slower growth, or prolonged uncertainty? Which alliances hold firm under stress? Economic power is not only about wealth. It is about resilience. It is about the ability to adapt, to redirect trade, to innovate, to persuade partners to stand together. As pipelines are debated, as sanctions lists grow longer, as markets fluctuate in response to each new development, the hidden war moves through spreadsheets and stock exchanges as surely as through intelligence channels. And perhaps the most profound impact is psychological. When citizens feel economic instability, trust in leadership can waver. Political debates intensify. Divisions sharpen. In that sense, economic pressure does not operate in isolation. It intersects with information campaigns and diplomatic maneuvering. Everything connects. Energy fuels economies. Economies influence politics. Politics shapes alliances, and alliances determine how far pressure can be sustained. Economic warfare is quieter than conventional combat. It unfolds over months and years, not hours and days. There are no dramatic battle scenes, only incremental shifts, policy announcements, and market reactions. But its consequences are real, and as both nations continue to test each other's resilience through sanctions, energy strategies, and financial tools, one truth becomes clear: leverage can be powerful, but leverage can also harden resolve. Sometimes, when pressure is applied, nations bend. Other times, they brace, and when they brace, they may look beyond traditional partners toward new alliances, new arrangements, and new centers of power. Which raises another question. If economic pressure reshapes the global map of partnerships, what does that mean for the balance of influence in the years ahead? In every era of great power rivalry, alliances matter. No nation stands entirely alone. Partnerships multiply strength. They signal resolve. They shape how the world understands power. After the Second World War, the United States helped build a network of alliances designed to prevent another global catastrophe. At the center of that network stood NATO, a collective defense pact built on a simple but profound promise. An attack on one would be considered an attack on all. For decades, NATO served as the Western anchor against Soviet expansion. Its headquarters in Brussels became a symbol of unity among democratic nations. American troops stationed in Europe were not just soldiers. They were a visible commitment. When the Soviet Union collapsed, many wondered whether NATO would fade into history. Instead, it expanded. Former Warsaw Pact nations, countries once firmly within Moscow's orbit, sought membership. For them, NATO represented security and alignment with the West. For Russia, however, expansion felt different. It was viewed by many in Moscow as a strategic encroachment, a steady movement of Western military infrastructure closer to Russian borders. From Washington's perspective, expansion was voluntary. Nations applied because they sought protection and stability. From Moscow's perspective, the map was changing in ways that altered the balance of power. Perception matters in international relations. Even defensive moves by one side can be interpreted as offensive by another. This dynamic has shaped tensions for more than 2 decades. Military exercises in Eastern Europe, conducted under NATO's banner, are described as defensive and routine. Russian exercises near its own borders are described by Moscow as sovereign and necessary. Each side insists it is responding, not provoking, and yet the pattern of action and reaction continues. Beyond Europe, alliances and influence take different forms. At the United Nations in New York, diplomats from the United States and Russia sit in the same chamber, sometimes cooperating, often disagreeing. The Security Council, where both nations hold permanent seats, can be a stage for diplomatic confrontation. Resolutions are proposed. Vetoes are cast. Statements are delivered in measured tones. The language is formal, but beneath the formality lies competition for legitimacy, for narrative, for the support of other nations. In recent years, Russia has deepened relationships with countries in Asia, the Middle East, and Africa. Energy agreements, arms sales, and infrastructure projects have expanded its footprint. The message is clear. Russia is not isolated. It has partners and alternatives. The United States, meanwhile, maintains an extensive network of alliances across Europe and the Pacific. It works closely with long-standing partners such as the United Kingdom, Germany, Japan, and others. Joint military exercises reinforce readiness. Intelligence sharing strengthens coordination. Alliances are not merely military arrangements. They are expressions of shared values and strategic alignment, but they are also political commitments that require maintenance. Public opinion can shift. Elections can bring new leaders with different priorities. Economic pressures can strain unity. For Americans who remember the solidarity of the Cold War era, alliances once seemed straightforward, a clear divide between East and West. Today, the landscape is more complex. Some nations attempt to balance relationships, maintaining ties with both Washington and Moscow. This balancing act reflects a changing world order. Emerging powers seek autonomy. Regional conflicts draw in outside actors. Economic interdependence complicates political choices. In this environment, influence is not measured solely by military strength. It is measured by persuasion. By the ability to convince others that alignment is beneficial economically. Politically, culturally, Russia often frames its foreign policy as a defense of sovereignty and resistance to Western dominance. The United States frequently frames its leadership role as support for democratic principles and international stability. These narratives resonate differently depending on history and geography. In Eastern Europe, memories of Soviet control remain vivid. NATO membership offers reassurance. In other parts of the world, skepticism toward Western intervention shapes attitudes toward American leadership. And so influence is contested not only through treaties, but through messaging and example. Military deployments send signals. Sanctions send signals. Diplomatic visits send signals. Each gesture is observed, analyzed, and interpreted. There is also the matter of proximity. Geography has always shaped strategy. Russia shares borders with numerous nations. Security concerns along those borders are deeply ingrained in its strategic thinking. The United States, protected by oceans, operates with a different geographic perspective. This difference influences how each side perceives risk. For Russia, NATO expansion may appear immediate and tangible. For the United States, it may appear as a voluntary expansion of a defensive alliance. Understanding these perceptions does not resolve disagreement, but it helps explain why tensions persist. Alliances also create obligations. If a partner nation is threatened, commitments must be honored. That reality can either deter aggression or entangle nations in crises not of their own making. During moments of heightened tension, leaders on both sides weigh the risks carefully. A military exercise here, a deployment there. Each decision calibrated. The goal, ideally, is deterrence without escalation. Yet history reminds us that miscalculations can occur. An incident at sea, an airspace violation, a misinterpreted movement of forces. Alliances can stabilize a region. They can also draw lines that are difficult to cross without consequence. For viewers who lived through the Cuban Missile Crisis, the memory of brinkmanship is not distant. They remember how quickly tensions can rise and how fragile peace can feel. Today's alliance dynamics may be more diffuse, more complex, but the underlying stakes remain profound. At its core, this hidden war is about shaping the international order. Will it be anchored primarily by Western institutions? Or will alternative centers of power redefine the rules? The answer may not come through a single dramatic event. It may emerge gradually as nations align, realign, and redefine their interests. And within that process lies another battleground, perhaps the most subtle of all. because alliances are sustained not only by treaties, but by belief in shared values, belief in mutual benefit, belief in leadership. If that belief weakens, alliances weaken with it. And in an age of constant information, competing narratives, and rising skepticism, belief itself has become contested terrain, which leads to a quieter but deeply consequential front in this hidden war, the battle not for territory, not for pipelines, not for cyber networks, but for the human mind. In every great rivalry there is a visible contest, and then there is a quieter one, a contest not for land or resources, but for perception. During the Cold War, Americans tuned their televisions to evening news broadcasts delivered by familiar, steady voices. In the Soviet Union, citizens relied on state television and radio to understand the world beyond their borders. Information flowed in structured channels. It was filtered, shaped, and presented with intention. Propaganda was not a subtle word in those days. It was openly acknowledged as part of statecraft, but the tools have changed. Today, information travels instantly. It moves through cable news, online platforms, podcasts, video clips, and social media feeds. It reaches people not just in their living rooms, but in their pockets, and in that constant flow lies opportunity. For decades, Russian strategists studied what they called information confrontation. The goal was not necessarily to persuade an entire population to embrace a new ideology. It was to create doubt, to amplify division, to erode trust in institutions. If people began to question the reliability of their own media, their own elections, their own leaders, cohesion weakens. From the American perspective, freedom of speech and a vibrant press are pillars of democracy. A wide range of opinions is not a weakness. It is a strength. Yet that openness can also be exploited. In recent years, U.S. officials have publicly accused Russian-linked actors of using online platforms to influence public debate. These accusations include efforts to amplify polarizing content, create false personas, and encourage discord around sensitive issues. Russian officials have denied direct involvement in such campaigns, often arguing that the United States engages in similar practices abroad. They point to American-funded media outlets operating in foreign countries and question whether influence is a one-way street. This exchange of accusations underscores a deeper reality. Information itself has become a strategic asset. Consider how quickly a rumor can spread online. A misleading headline, a carefully edited video clip, a fabricated story shared thousands of times before fact-checkers can respond. In earlier decades, misinformation might have circulated slowly through pamphlets or word of mouth. Today, it can reach millions within hours. And once doubt takes root, it can be difficult to uproot. For older Americans who grew up with 3 major television networks and a trusted local newspaper, today's media landscape can feel fragmented. Competing narratives exist side by side. Citizens often choose sources that reinforce their existing views. In such an environment, foreign influence does not need to invent divisions. It can simply magnify them. The objective may not be to convince Americans to favor one foreign power over another. It may be to encourage distrust in elections, in science, in journalism, in government itself. When citizens lose confidence in the reliability of information, public discourse becomes strained. Compromise becomes harder. Suspicion grows. This dynamic is not limited to the United States. Russia, too, faces its own information environment, shaped by state media, independent outlets, and online platforms. Russian authorities have taken steps to regulate digital spaces, citing concerns about stability and national security that both nations argue that they are protecting their societies from harmful influence. But the boundaries between protection and control can be debated. Traditional media still plays a role in this contest. International broadcasting networks, funded by governments, present narratives designed to resonate beyond their borders. They highlight stories that align with national interests. They frame events in ways that support strategic objectives. This is not new. During the Cold War, radio broadcasts crossed borders daily. Programs were crafted to reach audiences behind the Iron Curtain. Today's difference lies in scale and speed. Single video clip can circle the globe before breakfast. Algorithms, the unseen formulas that determine what content appears on screens, can amplify certain messages without human intention. Engagement becomes currency. Controversy often draws more attention than calm analysis. In this environment, truth competes not only with falsehood, but with distraction. Information overload can create fatigue. Citizens may disengage, feeling that clarity is out of reach. For those who remember the stark simplicity of Cold War messaging, democracy versus communism, today's landscape feels less defined. The lines are blurred, the narratives layered, and perhaps that is the point. A society that struggles to agree on basic facts may find it difficult to respond cohesively to external challenges. Intelligence officials and cybersecurity experts now monitor not only technical intrusions, but influence operations. They analyze patterns of coordinated messaging. They study how online communities evolve, but identifying influence is only part of the challenge. Responding to it without undermining fundamental freedoms is more complex. The United States has long prided itself on open debate. Regulating speech too aggressively risks contradicting the very values it seeks to defend. Russia, for its part, emphasizes stability and sovereignty, arguing that external narratives can destabilize a nation if left unchecked. Two different philosophies, two different approaches, yet both recognize that the perception of citizens is a decisive arena. When trust erodes, power shifts. And so the hidden war unfolds not only in intelligence agencies or diplomatic chambers, but in living rooms, on smartphones, in conversations among friends. It unfolds in what people choose to believe. It unfolds in what they question. The aim may not be to produce immediate change. Influence operations are often long-term investments. Small nudges, subtle reinforcements, repeated themes. Over time, narratives can take on a life of their own, and in a world saturated with information, discernment becomes a personal responsibility. For viewers who have witnessed decades of geopolitical tension, the stakes may feel both familiar and unfamiliar at once. The rivalry persists, but its expression is quieter. More pervasive. Victory in this domain is difficult to measure. Is it measured in opinion polls, in voter turnout, in levels of institutional trust? Or is it measured in something more intangible, the resilience of a society's confidence in itself? If citizens can no longer agree on what is true, if every event becomes subject to competing interpretations, if doubt becomes the default setting, then what does victory even mean? Perhaps the most powerful outcome in a hidden war is not convincing the other side that you are right. Perhaps it is convincing them that certainty itself is impossible. And if that is the case, then the battle for minds may prove to be the most enduring front of all. Because once trust is shaken, rebuilding it can take generations.